Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share with you my real-world self-publishing and small business experience. So let's get started with today's show. Now, one of the big differences for this show is that I am adding a video podcast version in addition to the audio. No, the audio isn't going anywhere. It will still be available on iTunes as always, and wherever else you listen to the podcast audio on. That's not going anywhere. I'm just adding a video podcast component to it and experimenting with it to see how it goes. And I was prompted to even try this because of a comment on one blog post that I wrote on some of the challenges of marketing with podcasts. Now, marketing with podcasts is a great idea. It is a really good way for you to connect with your audience in a very personal way. They're listening to your voice, which is a richer experience than they get from reading your blog post as text. So it's a really good platform. And with all the audio devices that we have on our phones, we have all the smart speakers, the Alexas, the HomePods, all of those things. Audio content is really hot. However, there's a lot of challenges yet with it. I think some of it will be overcome by technological developments, but right now there are still a lot of challenges. And one of the biggest challenges of marketing podcast or marketing with a podcast is that podcasts are not that terribly search friendly. And the audio content, the search engines really can't translate all of that mass of audio data. Yes, there are some translation tools and whatnot, but they're still not as widely available and accessible as they will be, I'm sure, at some point in the future. So what this requires is that you either have to have a transcript of it, or you have to make it more search friendly. Now, the transcript issue is big and it's expensive. If you've ever tried to write down everything you say, let's say you record your voice into your phone or whatever, and then you try and translate it into text, it's a big job. Now, there are some tools out there that might be able to help you do that, but it might not be perfect. There are services online that will take your audio or video files and translate them into text. So those services, at least as of this recording, are about $1 a minute. So let's do the math. If you have, let's say, a 15-minute podcast once a week, that would be a $15 a week cost to you. Now multiply that by 12 months. Wow, that'll be several $100s to do those audio transcripts of your podcast. And what people do is they'll upload it with their show description or as an attachment, or some of them just put it right in the description, but it's still not perfect, so you have to decide whether you want to invest in the transcripts. I think that's a big dollar outlay, and I don't know how valuable it is in the long run. And I'm hoping for the technology to take care of that at some point in the future. But the couple quick things you can do is you can really optimize your podcast episode titles and each episode's description, as well as the show description. So a lot of podcast episodes start out with episode number 348, and then it talks about what the episode is about. Well, that's not extremely search friendly because if all podcasts start out with episode, it's just going to go into the search engine slush pile. So I would suggest trying, and you might want to experiment with this, putting the title of the episode first and then putting the episode number at the back end of the title just to make it more search friendly for the robots. And you also want to include keywords, relevant keywords in not only your episode title, but also in the episode description and your show description so that that's text, so the robots, the search robots can more easily find it if you have a relevant topic for whatever the person is searching for. So those are a couple quick things you can do to make your podcast a little more search friendly. Now, the other thing with podcasts is that they're not clickable. At least the audio versions are not, because people are doing other things while they're listening to your audio. They're driving, they're walking, they're working out, doing housework, they're doing whatever. And you can't click anything while you're just listening to audio. It's not possible now. Maybe at some point in the far future, yes, but it is not available now. So what you have to do and think about is you have to put a memorable link or some very specific instructions about what you want your listeners to do if you're using your podcast for business. And you want to make sure that they remember what to do when they're not listening to your podcast. So you want to make that visiting link as simple as possible. You don't want to have it be a long string of HTTP colon backslash backslash and then your website name and then a backslash with to get to all the landing pages. Make sure that it's an easily rememberable URL in your podcast so that they can remember it when they're not listening, and then they don't have to listen to the podcast all over again. And one of the things too is you want to make sure that you put those links that you want them to click on in the show description so that if they forget, but they know they wanted to visit something that was in your podcast, they can just go to the podcast episode description and click on the link. And other ways to make it memorable. So for example, I have my books on Audible for the audiobooks. I have all my books on Amazon. My audiobooks and podcasts are on iTunes. So you might want to say, find me on Amazon. If you're an author, as I know many of you are, you might want to direct them to go to your author page on Amazon. And that's easy to remember. So that might be something you want to do to make that more search friendly too. Now, one of the comments that I did get that spurred this whole video podcast experiment was one of my readers asking, well, why don't you put your audio podcast, why don't you put your podcast on YouTube? Now, you can't just put up a graphic, add some audio to it, and slap it up on YouTube. There are people who do that, but it's really not a good user experience, and it may even be not in alignment with YouTube's content guidelines. So don't do it. If you're going to do a video podcast, do a video podcast. And the reason that the reader was suggesting it was that YouTube is very search friendly. You can put all kinds of links and all kinds of text in your description. And YouTube is one of the world's premier search engines. So I understood why she was asking about that. And I think it makes sense. But doing a video podcast is a completely different experience. You have to feel comfortable on camera and you have to do some tech things. So, for example, I'm recording this with an audio editing program that allows me to rip the audio from the video so that I can post it as an audio on iTunes and wherever else I post it. So, so I don't have to do double duty. Otherwise, if you do a video podcast and an audio podcast, you are doubling your work. So you might want to look for programs and services that allow you to maybe record the audio, but then also rip the audio from the video so that you don't have to do double duty. Now you might have to do a little editing on your audio bit. No problem. Audacity is free, and I've talked about that in my audiobook course and whatnot. So it's a really good program, and so it should be pretty easy from there. But again, it's all experimentation, and you have to be willing to experiment. And so I thank you for putting up with my experiment here, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy either the video or the audio podcast. And if you do, I would appreciate some comments or some likes here on YouTube for the video, and wander over to iTunes and please give the show a nice rating and review. And if you want to get more of this, please subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show on whatever podcast platform you like to listen to podcasts on. That would be for audio on iTunes, Stitcher, or Podbean. Currently, they're available. And on YouTube, you can subscribe to this channel, and you'll get updates on all the new videos that I do post. And of course, share it with your friends on social media that you think could benefit from whatever I offer in this podcast. If you're interested in my books and all the things that I offer, you can go to my website at HeidiThorne.com. And my books are available on Amazon on my Heidi Thorne author page. And the audiobooks are also available on iTunes and Audible.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you and seeing you again in the next episode. And in the meantime, have a great day.